Hi nerds, N0ECK here. It's that time of year again when hams around the US drag their radios out of the house, out of the basement, and go portable. ARRL Field Day is the most popular operating event of the year, and we all do some combination of an emergency exercise, public relations event, and a unique bit of radio sport. We chose to combine our field day effort with this year's National Parks on the Air event. Since one of the closer NPS units was a twofer, it was a natural choice. We chose the Clay County Park just south of Vermilion, South Dakota, which is inside both the Missouri Recreational River and the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail, but only if we set up within 100 feet of the river, so we reserved the picnic shelter. Alex and I arrived on Friday, set up the campers, and hung up the signs to let everyone know the shelter was reserved. After that, we ran for groceries and did some exploring around the rest of the unit. There's a really nice bluff across the river in Nebraska that really gives me some perspective about why Summits on the Air is so popular. After a good night's sleep, we both got up and started setting up about 9 a.m. on Saturday. We used wire antennas exclusively. The 80-meter dipole ran from the shelter to a cottonwood tree on the riverbank with the feed line secured to the shelter so it wouldn't get underfoot of any park patrons or their pets. The 40-meter dipole ran from the other side of the shelter to another cottonwood tree that was chosen to keep it away from a possibly noisy yard light. The 20-meter vertical found its home attached to my trusty 20-foot jackkite pole with the radials in the tall grass away from any pedestrians. The 10-meter vertical was also put up in an out-of-the-way place between the shelter and the tall grass. Instead of removing the Alinco DX70 from my truck, I left it for possible 6-meter activity and got out the ICOM 718. I used a homebrew interface that is very similar to the one in my previous video. For single sideband, I used a USB headset with the audio crisscrossed so that I could hear the radio and it could hear me. I also added a foot switch since that was such a pain during the Minnesota QSO Party activation of the Pipestone National Monument. Alex ran his FT991 and only had one cable connected because it has a built-in USB interface. His headset was configured the same way as mine, and he also used a foot switch. His foot switch was originally a thumb switch for a motorcycle radio mounting kit. After a short break for some passing lightning, the rest of the crew arrived, all packed for their trip to Yellowstone. They put up a homebrew mast with a dipole made from stainless steel 102-inch whips. They also erected a set of camo net poles that supported an off-center fed dipole and later a 40-meter dipole. Andy, K0URR, listened around for a while using his McHF kit transceiver. Matthew, W0ZZY, and Barry, KC0LMX, both used an FT857 and an Elecraft KX3 with a KXPA 100 amplifier. All of our stations ran on battery and solar power for the whole weekend. Just like Winter Field Day, we used N1MM in networked mode to keep all the logs in sync. As the day continued, Alex continued to rack up the contacts on 20-meter sideband. I worked 15-meter CW and digital until that dried up, and then moved over to 80 meters, but there was quite a bit of lightning static on 80, and it was pretty difficult. The Dakota contingent was on 40-meter phone doing search and pounce, and it's a good thing they put up their own 40-meter antenna because the original 40-meter wire was way too close to the 20-meter vertical. We couldn't run both of them at the same time without impossible interference. As the night wore on, everyone else went to sleep. Alex was my early morning relief, so he went to bed first. Well, I started in on 20 meters and worked search and pounce CW across that band, and I don't really trust my CW skills to pick out calls from a pileup, so I never tried calling CQ. I did the same search and pounce across 40 meters and spent a while doing PSK before I realized that was too slow for being the only station on the air. I tried 80-meter CW and made some contacts around the static crashes. There wasn't really a lot of action on 75-meter sideband other than some of the usuals with their kilowatts and surly attitudes. It's weird being in a picnic shelter at 3 a.m. and having the sounds of nature coming from the darkness. It's even weirder when a random car pulls up and then leaves a few minutes later. I thought they might be fishing, but I never saw them open the trunk. Remember that possibly noisy yard light? It never turned on. There was another yard light at the opposite end of the parking lot, but the only light in our area was the fluorescence of the shelter. It was RF quiet, but the interplay of CW with the birds and insects started playing tricks on me after a few hours all alone. The headphones had come off shortly after everyone else left, and a bird had startled me. Alex arrived just in time because I was losing effectiveness. He jumped right back on sideband and got a run going on 40 meters. Calling CQ really is the best way to make a lot of contacts. It's the best strategy when operating field day as a contest because there are no multipliers to miss by not working any rare states. It also helps that many field day operators are just as timid on phone as I am on CW. They fear the pileup. You need to embrace that and work them all. We were on the air right up to 1 p.m. Central. Alex even had a contact cut off by the finish horn at the other end. The eerie silence at the end of a contest is a very strange thing. The band goes from full of signals to nothing in an instant. All in all, I would call it a very successful activation. We had a great time and gave out the National Parks on the Air twofer to almost 800 other stations. The scenery was beautiful and our visitors were friendly. We did learn a few lessons. First, I need to work on my CW so I can run a frequency. CW contacts are worth double points and they go by faster than sideband contacts. Next, always separate your antennas. Bandpass filters might help, but keeping at least a half wavelength around each wire is essential. Now this isn't a new lesson, but I was definitely reminded that 20 meters and 40 meters are the most important bands for field day or any domestic contest. From our part of the country, a 20-meter vertical is killer to the coasts. That also applies to 15-meter verticals. Alex's run on 20-meter sideband and my easy trip across 15-meter CW cut right through the deep fading that happened all weekend. I also learned that PSK is too slow for a single operator during the overnight. Next time I'll leave that to a get on the air station or someone with mic fright who doesn't know CW. RIDI is better, but there weren't too many stations to work using that mode.
There are usually two different groups at every field day site. There's the guys that want to make as many contacts as possible, and the guys that just want to eat food and hang out with other hams. We had both of those at our field day site, and they both got what they wanted. There are so many great facets to this great hobby that we have room for everyone. As long as we can share spectrum, we are just a big brotherhood of nerds. Thanks for watching, everybody. 7-3, and join the resistance.